Welcome back to the Median Society. Tonight's podcast, we're going to delve into the intricacies of the human experience, the highs, the lows, and everything in between. I'm your host, Anthony Mitchell, and today's episode is deeply personal and profoundly moving. We're exploring the pain of losing a mother, a loss that can make you feel as if your very existence has been erased from the planet. Joining us today is Brianna Dance, a licensed clinical social worker and therapist, whose approach is heavily strength-based. Brianna works with clients to help them discover and harness their personal strengths and skills, enabling them to navigate life's many challenges. She draws on techniques from person-centered therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy, and solution-focused therapy. In addition to her exceptional work as a therapist, Brianna is the host of the Power of Care podcast, where she takes listeners on a spiritual journey each week. We're thrilled to have her here with us today to share her insights on coping with the profound loss of a mother. Brianna, welcome to the Median Society.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
We are so happy to have you. So, Brianna, tell the audience about yourself and some of your career and what inspires you.
So I have been a social worker for almost 10 years. I have always, as a kid, just always wanted to help people. It's just a natural part of me is to want to make sure people don't feel alone. So as a kid, that was always me standing up for people. And so it makes sense that I'm in a helping profession. And so as an adult, I've done that in many areas. I've worked in healthcare, I've worked in perinatal social work, helping moms. I've worked the family in different capacities, and now currently working at the Department of Behavioral Health as a clinician, helping families in the school, middle school specifically, and just making sure that they have wraparound services. And I also see clients as a part of a private practice, just helping people navigate life transitions because life can be challenging, but we don't have to do it alone. So it is a passion of mine to make sure that I live well and to take care of myself and to also help others do the same.
That's awesome. And I mean, so great. And it's always good to have people that genuinely are the extra care for others. You know, that is so appreciated by many of us. Let me ask you, what overall inspires you though?
What inspires me? I, you know what? I genuinely love people. I am a curious person, and I think that's why I wanted to study social work because it is about human behavior. And I'm just like, huh, why does that person do that? Or
Hmm.
what shapes this person? So I guess I'm inspired by just people in general and their stories and how people have still made it. I'm resilience is something that I'm very inspired by, just seeing people navigate hard times and still be here.
Hmm.
Because I know that sometimes it can really knock us down. So I'm inspired by people's stories.
That's deep. You know, one of the things that attracted me, reading about you, and one of the things that attracted me to you was just everything about you seemed to be a fighter, right? And I was telling you earlier, you have this real Erica Badu vibe about you, very, very chill, and you're just relaxed in how you carry yourself, and that's so awesome, And I could see where that goes a long ways when you're providing therapy services for individuals. So let's dive in. As you know, I shared with you a couple of weeks ago, how I felt when my mom passed last year. So it hasn't been that long. We're looking at a little over a year. It was last February that she passed, and February 2023, because we're in 24 now. And I remember sitting on my staircase after initially heard the news, and I had to process it, and I was waiting for my brother because we had got off the phone, and we were going to drive down. Probably should have flew down, but we drove down because my dad was still there. So dealing with his emotions and then having to deal with my own. But my point is, I was sitting on the staircase and I looked around and I felt like, is this even real? Like, what's going on? Like, I couldn't unpack like how I was feeling. I was just hurt. And I remember just breaking down crying. And, my wife came to me and trying to console me on it, but there was nothing that she could do. I just felt like there was like, I don't know if I was even existing in that moment. Why do you think that is? Like, what makes us feel that way in those kind of moments?
I mean, it's a shock to your system, right? Your mom has been with you your whole life. I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Everyone's relationship with their mother or their parent is different. Um, but we know that biologically, mom carries you in her womb. There's a bond that happens between baby and mom, where hormones are creating things and attachments are there. And so that's starting in foundation, right? And
Hmm.
then when you go through life, mom is there through all your stages of development. I mean, what would you say mom is to you? Like, what are some words that come out? Like, when
Yeah,
you
that's a
think
good question. Well, definitely, she was the rock. Um, and I and it was interesting because I we watched her be the rock not only for us as her kids, but she was the rock of the family itself. All her sisters, her siblings, cousins, even to this day, well, even before she passed, like people were going to her cousins and they kind of thought of her like their mom as well too. So we saw that, and she really delivered that. So I would say a rock, um, but not only one. She was a confidant. Um, she definitely was. She didn't play that friend stuff. She was mom.
Yeah.
So
So she
yeah,
was a rock and a confidant to not just you and your brother, or your siblings, and to your dad, but
yeah,
to everybody else. So that's shaking the whole family is shaken up
yep,
now, right?
yep,
Because we depended on her. So removing that key player is normal for everyone to be like, okay, is this real? First of all,
hmm,
is this happening? Like, what do I do now?
yeah. And I think that's exactly how I felt. Like, okay, so what's next? Like, what's next? And I wonder if often wonder, and I would sit there at my desk at work, and I would think to myself, like, is this how everyone feels when they lose their parent, their mom or their dad? But I never hear people say that really about their father. And it's not that I don't love my dad. I love my dad to death, but I don't hear people talk like that. But I do hear people say the same thing when they're talking about their mom. And I just think that's I don't know. I don't even know how to put it into words. I just remember how I felt sitting on the staircase that night. And every time I come into my house from work, I see myself sitting at that staircase. I don't physically do it, but I just remember that night, to the point, like I even told my wife, I say, I kind of just want to sell the house and go somewhere else because I'm tired of seeing the staircase. And I think because I associate it with that night, that we found out. So
And you're not alone because moms just have that special, again, that bond of carrying you in her body. That's a connection that no other person has experienced. In the nurturing and the things that she showed up for. Again, this has nothing to do with not respecting and loving dad, but
hmm,
this is about what mothers bring, and it just shows the impact
yeah,
of your mom's love and her life in your life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
See, and I also think there's a physical side too, because I remember for weeks leading up to it, but right after, it's like you go up to a cliff and then you just fall. Because I remember getting back home from the funeral after that weekend, and I got here, and I just was the best word is just felt like comatose for 2 or 3 days, and I don't even think I spoke with my brother for like that whole next week. Not anything because of him. I think it was just how both of us were processing. Because usually in the mornings, he and I will either one of us will call each other on the way to work, seeing how things are going or whatever. Um, Kind of in the words of Nino Brown, we all we got, you know, CMB, you know. But yeah, but in that case, it was like we hadn't even talked for like a 1 or 2 weeks or something, and it was weird, you know. So
So physically and even relationally, it sounds like grief and loss can impact you because both of you have your own experience
mm-hmm.
and are trying to figure out. I heard you earlier say trying to figure out your emotions, and then you also have your dad.
Yeah,
I'm sure you have to go check on him, and then there's logistics, and
yep,
then there's a process even after the funeral. Okay, so whoo, what a whirlwind.
yeah, yeah, and it seemed like it was super quick. I probably went back to work way too fast, but I didn't want to keep compartmentalizing all the emotions. Um, so yeah, it was strange, but it was definitely some loneliness. So when you hear people that are talking about this kind of hurt in general, what are some coping mechanisms that you talk to them about and how they can cope?
Yes. Some coping mechanisms. Well, first of all, I do want to define grief for your listeners. It is a multifaceted experience. So it is going to show up in your body. It is going to show up spiritually. You're going to be disrupted a little bit. It is going to show up emotionally. So I want to normalize that if you feel like your world is crashed, it's because it kind of has.
Mm-hmm.
And I want people to understand that it's going to touch every area, but it also is a learning process. So if we recognize that grief is, if we say this person's never died before,
Mm-hmm.
so I got to give myself grace and like trying to figure out what this means. This is new for all of us. But when it comes to coping, um, I think, again, giving yourself grace and understanding of the range of emotions.
Mm.
Some people respond to grief differently. Some people become quiet, they withdraw. Some people cling, you know. Some people become angry and confused, have so many questions, or just stuck in the denial of it all.
Yeah.
And so the ways to cope is to really seek support, to lean on people. I would say logistically for everyday life, because that first 6 months to a year, it's still in your mind pretty frequently.
Yeah.
And you need, you may need help getting things done. So I would definitely say leaning on support and confiding in the right people. And I think that's the key word is finding confidants, or a confidant who can you can be yourself with, who's not going to judge you or rush you through a process. But seeking that support is crucial. Not being isolated too much is key as well. And self-care. So self-care for everyone looks different, and it can change for you even by the day. But making sure, you're eating, you're grooming yourself to the best of your abilities. You're not overindulging in substances that can alter your state.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's just so many things that you can do to cope. There's support groups, grief support groups, because again, it is a part of life, and a lot of people are dealing with grief and loss of a parent, and also different types of grief.
Mm-hmm.
So there are groups that you can join online or even therapy groups in person or individual if you want to do one on one, because some things may come up not associated with the loss, but you may become angry at the person that's lost. Like,
Mm.
why would you leave me? You know,
Hmm.
type of things. You may have questions. And then some people feel guilty about those feelings. So
Yeah.
you need a space where you can process all of that without judgment.
You, wow. You know, it's interesting. I remember when I can go back and I look back at things that she was telling me, and I'm sure my brother probably had different moments too. But I can go back and look at the statements that she was making to me, because the last time I saw her was probably about 4 months, 5 months before she passed, because I went down for a funeral for a friend's mother who had died, 4 months before my mom, and then also ended up going to her sister's funeral up in Pennsylvania, which died 2 months before my mom did. So it was just a lot, and I think in that time frame there was just so much to unpack because there was just all this like passing of people. And the thing is, I think we all know that hey, tomorrow's not promised. We're all going one day, but you're never ready. You know, so anybody that tells you like, oh yeah, you just got to be ready, or you're gonna be ready when your mom or dad passes, that's just not true. I mean, because even today, to this day, I know when I sit at my desk sometimes at work, just things will pop in my mind, and I'll think about her, like what could I have done different? What do they call that? Like, why do we feel guilty like we didn't do enough, or uh, do we feel like there's something else we could have done to help them be here longer?
Yeah, that is that's common too, especially if you were some type of caregiver or if they were sick. Um, I'm not sure what your mom's state was, but guilt is a natural feeling as well. Of, is there something I could have done to prevent or to change this, or maybe I should have visited more often. Maybe I should have called her. Or
Mm-hmm.
we start to make ourselves kind of the focus
Yep.
of maybe what we could have done, even though we have to realize the reality is that we can't control those things. But it's a natural part of the process as well. Is just, what could I have done better?
Mm. Okay. We're gonna go into our first break. We'll be back in about 20 seconds. Okay. Welcome back to the Median Society. I'm here with Miss Brianna Dance, and we're discussing the profound pain of losing a mother. Brianna, before the break, we touched on the importance of support and what are some specific strategies or activities that can help someone cope with this kind of loss. Anything else you want to add to it before we go into the next part of our conversation?
Add drawing comfort from your religion or your spiritual practices. Again, being in community is great around that time. So whether, you know, mom had a favorite, you know, she went to a service, or you have a church that you would belong to,
Mm-hmm.
kind of showing up and listening to messages of hope, because sometimes it can get dark. Depression can creep in and can be a part of the grieving process for some,
Mm-hmm.
and it can linger for longer for others. And so, drawing on your faith, if that is something that you is about part of your value system, is another important part. I also want to say another activity that I encourage people to do is to write a letter to their loved one.
Mm-hmm.
Journaling is always something that, we encourage in the psychology world, but writing a letter. When when my birth mother passed, there were a lot of questions that were unanswered for me, and it just didn't feel appropriate when she was dying from cancer
Mm-hmm.
to bring up so much trauma, so much from the past. So I wrote her a letter, um, and I didn't give it to her. It was just for me.
Mm-hmm.
And so writing letters is something that could be very therapeutic for people. going to go visit your childhood home, or just doing things that can kind of reconnect you with that person, listening to their favorite song, carrying the legacy on in different ways where you can honor them, through a podcast or through any means of creativity that maybe connects you with that parent. But there's so many things that you can do to honor your loved one.
Yeah. No, that's deep because I know one of the things that, and I carry this on too with it because I know that my mom was a avid, beautiful singer, and that's something that I just do. I'll go into my recording studio at times and just go into different songs. A lot more personalized songs now than before. But yeah, I totally get it. It is something that's helped me through this is really digging back into music because that was something that was my mom 100%. So I totally get what you're saying. I guess on top of that, the other part is really the doing doing this show because I get the opportunity to speak with people like you, but I get this opportunity to speak with people and help people learn through things that my brother and I are guiding them with the Media and Society. So, that's super great advice as for what you just said. How do people that are stuck? So let's go into some of your like your job in general. How is it that when people are stuck, how do you get them out of that being stuck? Because like I know for me, I'm able to get out. I'm blessed. I've been blessed enough to get out. I have enough loving people around me that continue to inspire me and move me, encourage me. But there's people that don't have that. So how do you go about helping them?
Yeah, that's such a good question. Not everyone is privileged to have. They may have people in their life, but they may not be people that the right people, right? I'll just say that.
Hmm.
But you're right. Getting unstuck feels messy and impossible sometimes. But I think again, normalizing that feeling stuck is a part of the grieving
Hmm.
process, and I think really mainly for, I guess, as a clinician and maybe for you or anybody else listening who is trying to figure out how to support somebody who is grieving, um, is I think we have to recognize what we're responsible for and what we're not.
Yeah.
We have to recognize what we can, like the feelings that come up when we can't fix something,
Hmm.
right? I can't bring your loved one back, but what can we do? How can I sit with you and not rush you in your process? So I think that is key. Helping someone to get unstuck is really meeting them where they are that day.
Hmm.
Not projecting, oh my God, you must be really sad today, when they may be okay that day,
Yeah.
you know? I like, so really tuning in and really leaning in to where people are is really important, and not putting our feelings on others is really important. Um, because I've read something. There was a woman that lost her husband tragically,
Hmm.
and she said that she was so upset that people were projecting that on Father's Day they assumed that she would be so distraught, and
Hmm.
she said she was actually so happy on that day. But she was actually really sad on Halloween because that was their favorite holiday.
Gotcha.
So there's things you don't think about, like that. So for me, helping someone who may be stuck is, it's important for us to meet them where they are,
Hmm.
and to just be that dose of hope, whatever that looks like for that moment. And also encouraging them. I'm all about routine because you mentioned earlier, solution focused therapy is something, that a strategy that I use.
Hmm.
And so in grief, our goal for today may be, okay, did you wash today? Like,
Mm.
did you, like, getting yourself up,
Yep.
and not jumping to this big goal or this big whatever that destination is, but like taking care of yourself. What
Hmm.
what do- what do I need in this moment? And so I think, again, checking in with self and your needs, because there's a hierarchy of needs. Did I drink enough water today? Did I
Mm.
sleep? Am I sleeping? those type of things, to get unstuck is really just to take care
Yeah.
of self. That is your responsibility right now.
Yeah. When you're working with your clients and you you have one that when do you ever feel like you're not breaking through?
Hmm. When do I feel like I'm not breaking through?
Like what would make you feel that way?
I guess sometimes I'm not gonna lie. Sometimes if I see that the person is kind of still on a point and it's been a while,
Mm-hmm.
the stuck feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I kind of honestly, I wonder if it's me sometimes where I'm like, am I rushing them? Because maybe maybe it does take them another 2 months,
Mm-hmm.
to get to wherever that is supposed to be. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to change my thinking from that, where it's like if this is my assignment for today or for however long in this person's life. Also, I recognize too in therapy that my style may not work or this person may need something different. So that's important too, is
Mm-hmm.
to assess, okay, is what does this person need? Am I able to meet that need right now or do they need another type of treatment?
Mm-hmm.
So that's important too.
Okay. So you as a therapist, when do you determine that it might be too much for you to keep working with an individual?
I would say if I'm getting triggered by something and it's impacting the work,
Mm-hmm.
if it's impacting the journey, or if there's any, I mean, they teach us about checking our biases at the door.
I
That's
got you.
like 101. Um, but for me, that's why self-care for myself is so important, because if I'm over here not taking care of myself
Mm-hmm.
and I'm bleeding out, it's going to come out, onto the clients. And
Gotcha.
so that's why, I have my own therapist and I check in with, um, other clinicians about things. We bounce off of each other to make sure we're staying in alignment with things. And so if there's a client that I don't believe is a good fit or and vice versa, then I will be honest about that and help them to get to the right person.
Hmm. Mm. What? So what age range do you typically? Because I know you said you work at schools, but what's the oldest you typically work with?
So my oldest client is was 60 something.
Ah.
Yeah. So I really see like teens to adults.
Okay.
That's my specialty is teens and up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So here's a question I'm sure people have: what happens when you're providing therapy for something that may come off illegal? How does a therapist maneuver around that? Do you go tell the cops, or is it patient confidentiality? What? So you start working with somebody and they told you they did something illegal um, to a child or whatever it may be. Like say you're SVU, Special Victims Unit or something like. How are you? What does a therapist have to do in those situations?
Yes. So I see what you're saying. So I am a mandated reporter.
Mm-hmm.
So that means if there's any type of abuse or neglect of elder,
Mm-hmm.
children, anything, I am mandated to report that
Gotcha.
to protective services. I have a duty to warn. So if I know that there's a plan here, then I do have to legally do that. But otherwise, those are the limitations around confidentiality. But
Mm-hmm.
otherwise, everything else is protected.
Gotcha.
But yeah, unless there's some type of harm to self or others, that is those are the limitations there.
Understood. In your career, have you had to work with the police in any sort of way ever?
Trying to think. Yeah, I'm trying to think about. I've worked with the police in the sense of if a child has run away and I'm with the family
Mm-hmm.
and we're trying to figure things out. Um Yeah, I've worked with the police in that capacity, but not worked with them, but they've been present when I'm
Mm,
with the family.
gotcha, gotcha. And have you had to deal with like any like taking? Well, how, have you had to deal with helping the family out like after they've lost a child in your career?
Hmm. Thank God, no. None of my clients, to my knowledge, have passed away or been killed.
Gotcha.
So I haven't had to directly help in that way, but um, a lot of my clients have maybe lost another child
Mm-hmm.
that wasn't my client, or
Yeah.
maybe one of my clients has lost a parent or something like that through gun violence or illness or whatever. But
Mm.
those are different things that I've experienced.
Had your career always been in DC?
Yes, my whole career has been DC. I know it very well.
Wow. So you love it.
I love it. I love the city. I love working with the youth and their families and just people. I really enjoy what I do.
What would you say is your most significant accomplishment in your career so far?
That's a great question. I would say I really love the job that I have now. I thrive off of teams, so I love working in the school
Mm-hmm.
environment because we get to bounce off of each other, and the kids give me so much energy. So that was a big accomplishment. Also, getting my clinical license was a journey.
Mm.
So a lot of professions like lawyers, doctors require a level of licensure and testing and studying and hours and all the things. And so I didn't pass my first two times. And so just persevering and basically, like you said, I'm a survivor, I'm a fighter.
Mm-hmm.
So that was probably the highlight of my career, is passing that exam, and I'm actually considering going back to get my doctorate,
Woo.
so we'll see.
Hey, we know a lot of PhDs that can keep you inspired. You just let us know. We'll connect you with them.
Yes, I will definitely let you know because I'm thinking about it.
That is awesome. And where you think about going?
I'm thinking about going to Morgan State
Okay.
University. They have a great um, DSW program, so Doctorate of Social Work.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I'm really passionate about, studying trauma, neurobiology, and human behavior and spirituality, all those things mixed, and how it informs how we move in the world.
Mm.
Um, and so I'm definitely curious about just becoming sharper, even as I do more speaking engagements.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be able to speak just more clearly and just more with more facts. So I'm excited.
Hey, you're on the right track. And what I want you to do is tell the audience what is the process of the whole licensure thing, because I think they'd like to know that.
Yes. So if anyone's interested in becoming a social worker, well, first of all, I didn't even know what a social worker was, to be honest. When I first started, I was like, okay, I wanted to, because my background is in public relations, journalism. That's what my undergrad degree is in.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but then I switched over to wanting to be a counselor. And so obviously I needed to get that education. And so one of my mentors recommended social work because of just the job opportunities are a little bit more broader with becoming a social worker,
Mm-hmm.
being able to still be a therapist. And so the process is, you can get your bachelor's, you can get your master's of social work, and then it's encouraged to get your license so that if you want to do any type of clinical work, meaning if you want to provide therapy in the future in your career, you will need to be licensed.
Mm.
Every state has their own, you know, requirements for that, but
Mm-hmm.
that process is strenuous. You have to take a test. It's like a 4-hour exam. It is, I can't remember how many questions. But you also have to acquire hours, like thousands of hours with experience. a field experience. So there's the graduate level license, and then there's the clinical level license. So you have to
Hmm.
have the graduate level for a couple of years, and then you can move on to your clinical. So it's a journey.
It sounds like it. But guess what? You accomplished it. That's what I'm saying. For those of you, you got to take some time and look at Brianna's podcast. I mean, she's a very sharp. That's where the journalism thing comes in, because I could tell there was something different. I was like, this is not a normal interviewer. You know, I've seen a lot of podcasts, and I'm like, she's she's different. So okay, now we got Tamron Hall on here right now. You know, we got Brianna. That's even better, right? Well, as we come to the end, coming closer to the end of this show, what I want to do is give you opportunity to tell the audience, leave them with some words of wisdom. The floor is yours.
Yeah. Thank you. First of all, thank you so much for inviting me. Um, Grief is it's crazy that you wanted to actually talk about this because on my podcast on Power of Care, we have been talking about grief. I think the last episode I had was life after grief. Um, and it's interesting. I probably would change the title now because grief doesn't go away. It's just it changes. Um, it's just an extension of love, right?
Hmm.
I heard somebody say it's the tax that we pay for love. And so, my encouragement to someone who is grieving, whether it be the loss of a parent or the loss of a job or any type of loss, because there's so many different types of loss. Um, Loss of a job, expectation, or ending of anything. My encouragement to you is to be gentle. Be gentle with yourself. Recognize how normal it is to feel all of the things that you're feeling right now and to give yourself compassion and really identify who that person has to be at least one person or one place that you can go to who is that's safe. And what I mean by safe space, like I said earlier, judgment free. You don't have to perform, you don't have to be perfect, you don't have to say the right things, you don't have to say anything. But I really just want the word gentle is just coming to my mind, and I really just want you to have some compassion for yourself. And if you're frustrated that you're still crying over something, or if you're frustrated that you're not at a certain place in your journey and you see other people um, further along, or, you know, try not to compare yourself to other people's experiences or your old experience, right? Because sometimes we compare ourselves to our old selves
Hmm.
or how we thought things should be, you know. So trying to get rid of the shoulds in our thinking is important. So that's my encouragement, is to be gentle, have some self-compassion, and to get what you need. You know, first talking again, it's something as basic as drinking water, something as basic as getting sunlight, you know, something as basic as stretching. So just tuning in with your body and just be gentle.
And that, thank you so much, Brianna. Those are powerful words to end on. Thank you again for joining us, and thank you to our listeners for tuning in. If you found today's episode helpful, please share it with others who might benefit. And don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other. The Median Society, I'm your host, Anthony Mitchell, and we're out. Thanks for watching this latest episode of the Median Society with Anthony Mitchell. Please like and subscribe, and of course, hit that notification bell to be notified when our latest content is posted for your viewing pleasure. Thank you to all of our subscribers and friends of the Median Society for your ongoing support. We see you and appreciate you. My name is Austin Mitchell, the host of the Review Show, where we run back some of the most impactful clips from past and present episodes of the Median Society and discuss their relevance in our society's discourse. We also have exclusive interviews with Anthony Mitchell and provide insight on upcoming projects before they drop from TMS Studios. The Media Society is more than a show, but a coalition of change in and throughout communities across the world. To learn more about us, please visit tmsstudiosllc.com, and you can also find us on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. And of course, with that said, we're out.